The success of this journey is going to depend on how well we manage. Okay, I need a lapel one. So today what I'm going to do is take you through, look at the way we currently manage our outsourcing partners, introduce some new thinking, and then also introduce you to a framework that we're developing and have developed, should I say, that we are implementing within EOH so we can take advantage of transformational outsourcing. I've only got 30 minutes, so it's actually a very long topic, so I'm not going to be going into any details, and I just hope afterwards that you can ask the questions of me or collar me in the corridor. Very happy to have a chat about in some more detail with you. If we look at how we've done outsourcing historically, we've gone out and selected a partner, and everybody's happy, and the first sort of 18 months or so, everything goes well. Your partner's delivering on what they promised, and they're meeting the SLAs, and we think we've got value. The problem we have with that is that over a period of time, it begins to change. Sorry, I need to go back. It develops into an us and them type situation. And I commonly hear when I go and talk to companies who are outsourcing, we're not getting any value from our partner. Where's the innovation? These stories are bound. I don't know how many times I've heard them, and I've been on both sides of the equation. I've both been with vendors, and I've been a consumer of outsourcing services. Now, and a lot of frustration builds up with this, and what happens is that the relationship deteriorates, and you don't get the value or the innovation you're looking from your partner. Now let's just have a look at why this happens. Firstly, the strategy that we adopted, and as Peter discussed in his presentation, is that we tend to have a strategy that is fix this mess or outsource an existing service for less. Now, that's only a short-term strategy. Actually, within the first 18 months of the relationship with that partner, you've implemented that strategy. So if that's what you're managing, is that strategy, the strategy's run out with that partner. So hence, where's the value? Where's the innovation? Second problem you've got is that the contracts that we build with our partners are an inhibitor for transformation and change and innovation. Sorry, I'm getting my slides on. So, my slides are absolutely out of order. Okay, that's better. Sorry, guys. So we've got these static contracts. We also, the way we manage the relationship, and when I say we, I'm talking both suppliers and clients. We treat that relationship just as we've treated historically back in the day when we had people supplying tin to us, suppliers of hardware. We actually treated the relationship exactly the same. And we tended to chuck the problem over the wall to each other if there was a problem, without respecting that any service that is delivered into your organization can only be done by a partnership. It can't be just the service provider. It requires both parties to work together. And we structured ourselves in such a way that we inhibited that close relationship because we didn't recognize that. And we became very ops focused, okay? Now, transformational outsourcing is not it doesn't say throw away. We still need to have this operationally focusing, but we need to have an innovation and a strategy innovation process that we can deliver on. So let's look at some new. Sorry. So we need to start thinking differently about this, the way we manage these relationships. And again, I emphasize, it is both partners and clients need to do this. EOH needs to change the way it manages the relationship with its clients, and the clients need to do the same. Now, firstly, I'd like to just unpack these three words. You know, we use them so often and we don't put them in any sort of context. What is strategy? We tend to use strategy to mean a lot of things. We use innovation. What is it? And what's value? And if I ask anybody here in the audience, what's your definition? You'll all give me different definitions and they'll be convoluted and so on. What I'd like to do here is just try and put a definition to them to allow us to look and say, how to make it more manageable for us to manage these three things. And they are very closely aligned, but they are different. Firstly, strategy is the setting of objectives. Now, the business sets objectives. I want to grow the business by 20%. I want to open a new product line. Those are objectives, okay? You set strategy objectives. Now, the innovation is a process of how you identify opportunities to meet those objectives, how you select them, and then how do you deliver on them. Innovation is not an invention. It's a result of a process. It's a process and the result of a process. And then value is the measurement of the contribution of that innovation to meeting the objectives of the company. Now, objectives, those objectives are the context that you give to your implementation strategy, and that's your innovation. So if you've got a process, an innovation process you've defined, you can now manage that process. And you can also involve your outsource partner in that process. And I hope that just stimulates some ideas around this question of innovation, strategy, and value, because it has huge bearings on transformational. Outsourcing is about leveraging of partners to change the way IT fundamentally supports the business objectives. And some of our previous speakers today have touched on this topic as well, partner selection. We've got to change the way we select our partners. And I don't mean, I have a slightly different thinking around it. I still think there maybe has got to be some sort of RFP process, just to give some more structure to it, but maybe not. Depends what sort of size your organization is. But what you've got to do is be able to not just say, I'm picking the supplier to deliver this service. I'm picking a partner to engage with to deliver on my strategy. And what is that strategy? You need to understand that strategy right up front. And then be able to say, can my partner work with me to deliver on that strategy and contribute to that strategy? Again, if you've got a strategy objective set, you should be expecting your partner to come with those opportunities, create those opportunities with you as part of the innovation process to meet those objectives and deliver value. That's how you can manage the delivery of value and where's your innovation. Answer the question of where your innovation is. Because this is all about innovation and all about delivering business value. We've used this word partnership ad nauseum, and historically we've used this word partnership, but we don't actually manage it like a partner. Neither vendors nor our clients. We have a partnership. The vendors don't invest much in the relationship. The clients are not very transparent with their strategic objectives and allowing us into their organizations and forming part of their strategic direction. So it's very difficult to bring innovation in that context. We need to put structures around that. It's about sharing risk and reward. Incentivize the vendor. We got the examples used. We've got an 8-hour SLA on a desktop service. Well, yes, that may be the baseline, and maybe the vendor should be delivering that at cost, but it earns its margin, for instance, by beating that SLA. Okay, just a different way of thinking about it. And this word transparency is so important in this. Why shouldn't the vendor share their costs with you? Or you share your strategy with them. You've got to find mechanisms that build the trust relationship. And trust is earned. And that's, I fundamentally believe that some of the things that's gone wrong in the past is that the vendors and the clients have not built a trust relationship. And this is very important. We've got to put in the structures that makes a partnership work. And it is a partnership. Even today, just to deliver a desktop service is a partnership. And then we've got to look at our contracts. Our contracts are very unwieldy. They are designed for inertia. I think that's the right word. They're designed for inertia. I've had a look at the EOH contract. It's 110 pages long. And it's just unworkable in contract. I think the contracts must be simpler, geared around innovation and basic controls. But the rest is implemented in your management practices. You can't put management practices into a contract, okay? And culture and things like that. You can't put it into a contract. And this is what it's going to be all about, is how well you manage and you implement this partnership. And linked to this partnership is you measure the partnership, not the vendor. Share. Whoever's managing, who's responsible and plays a role in that partnership from the vendor and the client should have common objectives. Not the vendor's objectives and not, some other objectives. The client's management team and the vendor's management team should have the same objectives in the way we measure the partnership. We need to build the sort of partnership and relationships and with contracts that benefits that are derived from innovation things is passed through to the client. It needs to be fundamental to the relationship. And often today, our contracts don't allow us to do that. It doesn't happen because they are very rigid. And the vendors are very rigid too, because that's the way we contracted, 5 years ago. We've got to change that. The other thing I think that we've got to focus in on, and from a management, this is real management stuff, is we need to understand those boundary spanning processes between your partner and your own organization. We don't manage that. We can't. Currently, the process seems to start at the vendor side. You chuck it over, they deliver a service, and fingers get pointed like this. We've got to look at the processes, and there's a lot of them. When you come and sit down and think, if you just take DevOps, an opportunity here, that's a boundary spanning process. You've got organization, you've got the business organization, you've got group IT organization, and on top of that, you've got a vendor. That's a process that goes across that. This needs to be well defined. Risk management is another process that goes across that, and it needs to be aligned and managed. Innovation is another one. If you want to get your vendors to bring innovation and implement innovation with you, you've got to put that innovation process in place with them and manage it. And what's more, you need to underpin all of these things with tools. You've got to automate them. Like any other process, you want them to work efficiently. We need to measure the right things. I call it measures that matter. We need to measure the partnership. How successful? Not measure the vendor, measure us as what we've got to deliver, because it is in us. We've got to measure a business outcome, not an IT outcome like an SLA of 8 hours or whatever. It would be much more interesting to the business if we looked at a metrics of desktop productivity rather than an 8-hour SLA, and how we could achieve these productivity numbers. Now, it's a little more complicated to do that, but we should be doing that. This is what we've got to look at. Look at business outcomes as a metrics, because that will enable the business to understand what we're trying to do. Now, I'm going to finish off. I haven't got a lot of time, but I just want to briefly go through this framework with you guys to really highlight to you that we can put in place a management, no, I won't call it system, but it's a, well, let's go back. It is a framework. It is designed so that it'll take care of every different business's requirements. It's not a prescriptive thing, but it allows you to focus your mind on specific areas that you need fundamentally to look at, so that we can enable transformation to happen in the organization and be able to sustain it, more importantly. This isn't, doing it once off, and the problem is to sustain this over the length of the relationship you have with your partner or partners. Firstly, it's very important, I believe, that some sort of mandate is negotiated with the business so they are part of the solution. They understand what you're trying to do. How are you going to measure this? How are you going to control and make sure it's governed properly? You need to have that engagement in the business. It creates a common understanding. It helps them understand what the business responsibilities are going to be. Because business, going forward, as IT transforms itself, more and more responsibility for IT matters is going to move into line management. That's going to happen. So we need that common understanding when we set out on this journey. Secondly, we need an organizational, I call it structure, you can call it leadership framework, is how are we going to make this partnership successful and driven by the objectives, the strategic objectives over time. Now, there are two agendas here, and we talk about the bimodal organization. There's the one agenda that says keep things static, and the other agenda is rapid change, transformation, these things. We need different people for those different agendas. And we need different people. And if you take the vendors, what do vendors put on site? Okay, they either put in an operational guy, or they put an account manager who is a salesman. That's not going to work going forward. What you need on the innovation side of the equation is you need people who understand innovation, understand what IP is back in the shop that can be applied to your business and understands your business. Very different thought process to the current way vendors manage accounts. The operational guys have got an operational responsibility, and we need to put in the structures to make sure those two are run in parallel. We also need to align, and I think I mentioned before, those people in that relationship who are fundamental to them from both sides in there with shared objectives. Not, I've got an objective to hit a target for EOH. I've got to meet this objective. Because if we meet your objectives, the EOH meets its client's objectives, they're going to meet their revenue objectives. That should be absolutely aligned. I've spoken quite a bit about process, and it's a key management area for us. The strategy implement, innovation, project management is part of it, is a sub-process of the innovation management. Risk management, demand management. How, when we want to, get agile, we don't want to wait for, 2 months to get procurement to get something done. We need it done in days, okay? So put in the process between you and your partner that enables that to happen rapidly in hours or whatever. Put it in place. It needs to be done. And this needs to be formalized, documented and properly understood. Who's the roles and all that. It's not something lip service to it. We need to do this. I've seen so many areas in friction areas in outsourcing relationships, just around simple things like billing, invoicing. It's a mess because we haven't looked at the processes and integrated them between your partner and yourselves and made it simple and electronic and things so there isn't all these queries. It'll suit the EOHs of the world and it'll suit yourselves because you don't have all this hassle around payment. It's just simple things, but then you need to actually develop policies that govern this relationship. And I don't mean go overboard. And the services that are going to be delivered, make sure that they are in place. Make sure the right governance stuff is in place so that there is no ambiguity between yourself and your partner. Again, it's about transparency here. Understand what you want out of it, and the policies help that. And I don't think enough attention is put in this area here from both sides. The framework, this is a pictorial view of it. You will see one of the key components, and the fifth component, which is foundation to it, is around measures that matter. I'm not going to elaborate any further on them. I've spoken quite a bit about them, but it's something we've got to think about when we set up these relationships. Is what is the measures we're going to take? The old way of doing SLAs is, it's not going to go away, but it's only going to form a part of what you're going to do and what you're going to measure. Just take, for instance, why don't we, at the beginning of a relationship with a partner, why don't we benchmark a few things at the start? For instance, cost per PC, or operating costs as a ratio of total operating costs and things, so we can measure over time how the partnership is delivering value. We don't do that. Very rarely. Importantly, I think that what I like and I'm advocate is that you put in a balanced scorecard type of measurement tool for the process, for the relationship, for this partnership, which is flexible. Why is balanced scorecard such a useful tool in measuring things? It's because it's linked to strategy. It's dynamic. It can change every quarter or every year or every 6 months. It's flexible, unlike a contract where we've got SLAs in it and things, because we need to be flexible. The measurement should be reflecting what you want to achieve at any point in the relationship. And it's multi-dimensional. It just doesn't look at one dimension, which an SLA does. SLAs tend to look at one dimension. This looks at innovation. It can look at process improvement, and a whole lot of things. So that's why I like and suggest, as underpinning this in measurement, that we use a balanced scorecard approach to measuring the partnership. And really, just to conclude, despite all I've said here about putting in the management and putting the right management structures in place and controls and all this, it's going to require a fundamental, and to pick out from Renee's presentation this morning, a cultural change in the vendors and in IT. Now, EOH is adopting this framework and is busy operationalizing it. It's a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. We are committed. I'm working with the EOH to roll this framework out, to support IT transformational outsourcing. And it's a framework that can be shared with you, and I'm very happy to speak to anybody after here or answer any questions. Thank you.